Mr. Mayor, thank you, all of the representatives here from Ford and the Innovation Center, all the folks that are eager to come back in person to work, that may be joining us online. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here. Love to say about our state, no better place to say this about our state than Palo Alto. The future happens here first. And we're really talking about being in the future business in this presentation, or rather in this reflection of the investments that have been made in this region of the state, but also the investments we look forward to making as we actualize a $37.6 billion climate budget. Let's put that in perspective. Just in the last 2 years, with the incredible support of the Assembly member and his colleagues, and this year with the proposed budget, $37.6 billion. California is poised to start investing over the next few years to future-proof California, to address the anxieties that so many of us have around extremes, extreme weather, extreme drought. The hot's getting a lot hotter, the dry is getting drier, the wet's getting wetter with all these atmospheric rivers. California is on the tip of the spear in terms of the effects of climate change and extremes, but we also are in the leading edge of innovation, leading edge of addressing with a resilient mindset these anxieties, not just for the country, but for the globe more broadly. And that's why I'm really proud to be here, particularly with Ford, because if you're asking why, because Ford stood tall with the state of California. Ford stood tall with the stated goals that were advanced in California over half a century ago, when we were the first to create a framework to regulate tailpipe emissions. It was a Republican by the name of Ronald Reagan, Governor Reagan, that advanced that cause in 1967, codified in 1970, the Clean Air Act, the establishment in that same period of the California Air Resources Board that allowed California to lead, that established a framework where we can quite literally not move just the state in a new direction, but move markets globally. As a consequence of that leadership, the industry has radically changed for the benefit of each and every one of us. In a world where we're heating up, choking up, burning up, where so many of our kids' lungs are filled with smoke, we have the opportunity, as the mayor said, to be part of one of the broadest and most dynamic transformations of our economy in modern times. You want to be big? Many have said you got to be big in big things. This is a big thing. This is a big deal. And that's why not only Ford stood tall with us, but so many others followed Ford's lead. And we were able to push back against the assault on progress, the assault on reason, the assault on common sense, economic growth, and public health that was advanced by the previous administration, the Trump administration, and we were able to persevere. But it took the courage of leaders like Bill Ford and others to stand with the state of California in that process. And here's the exciting news. All you have to do is, look at your options. If you're an employee at Ford, you've seen what's happened in the last number of months. Companies like Ford that are embracing the future, recognizing if you don't invest in the future, you're not going to do very well there, investing in electric vehicles and their broad transformation. As a consequence, their market share has gone through the roof. Their prospects for the future have only increased. And in turn, success has left clues. You've seen other companies rush to join Ford to embrace the future. And you're seeing this transformation across the spectrum. And the competition in this space is going to do the one thing we're all waiting to see, and that's costs significantly declining. So we have a ubiquity of opportunity and access and affordability in this space. California, that $37.6 billion budget includes $10 billion specifically, if the legislature is supportive, $10 billion specifically for electric vehicle transformation, to do what must be done. And we thank Greenlining for their extraordinary leadership to make sure equity lens is advanced in terms of providing incentives through our Clean Cars for All program, another $265 million in this year's budget, building on the $400 million we put in last year's budget to provide rebates to do just that. Hundreds of millions of dollars for infrastructure investment in low-income communities, specifically billions statewide. Tax incentives for manufacturers. Why not? One of California's top exports is electric vehicles. We dominate in manufacturing in this space in terms of startups, small companies that are becoming larger competitors. Rivian, as the mayor said, being one of many of them in this space. California-based companies that continue to grow and continue to, well, prosper in this remarkable and uncertain environment. And so we're here with pride and appreciation for Ford's leadership, for their stewardship of the environment, but their leadership in this space. We're grateful to Honda and others, and VW, that also stood tall during those very challenging years with the previous administration. And now with the headwinds being replaced with tailwinds, the Biden administration helping support, advance, and aid our efforts, we were grateful to be joined specifically as an example by the Vice President just a few days ago, highlighting their investments in advancing resiliency for the state, investing in strategies and solutions as it relates to the concerns that we continue to have around extreme weather events and droughts leading to extreme fire conditions, but also their commitment and their resolve to advance at congressional level efforts to provide more supports in this space, in addition to the hundreds of millions coming to California specifically for electric vehicles that they successfully got passed in the bipartisan infrastructure bills. So $10 billion specifically in the electric vehicle space if we're successful this year's budget. $37.6 billion if we're successful broadly in this year's budget to invest in the climate space to future-proof the state of California. Give me a country investing that kind of money. There's certainly no subnational that's doing that. And I imagine only a couple of countries in the world, and I'm assuming when the budget is successfully passed with the enhancement under BBB or whatever version they put out through the president's leadership, that the United States will take the mantle of leadership once again. But California, in the absence of that, is going to lean into the future and is going to continue this transformation. I'll close just with one final and important point. If you think about climate and you think about issues related to greenhouse gas emissions, then you have no choice but to disproportionately focus your efforts on what brings us here today. Over 50% of all greenhouse gas emissions in the state of California, in this state, over half of the greenhouse gas emissions come from oil extraction and or tailpipes. The automobile industry in California and its related extraction and costs are the leading cause of greenhouse gas emissions in our state. So you can't be serious about addressing the issue of climate change and decarbonizing your economy and running your economy on a carbon-free engine unless you're making the kind of investments to partner with companies like Ford and other automobile manufacturers to do just that. And so I wanted to express, again, perhaps the two reasons we're here. One is appreciation and pride of Ford's investment in California and in the future of our country and our world, but also recognition that it's an imperative for the state in particular, if we're going to continue our leadership in this space, to do everything in our power to meet the goals we established as the first state in America and one of the few jurisdictions in the world that now is requiring all new purchased vehicles to be alternative fuel vehicles by 2035. By the way, I signed that on, I don't know, maybe it been literally that car, because I think it was the same color Ford a couple years ago, and people thought that was an extreme initiative. You're now seeing jurisdictions across the country and around the world joining that call because they recognize what's happening and they see the opportunity. And I'm really proud of California's leadership again in that space, and I look forward to doing much more in the future. So that's the purpose of our announcement here today. If you are on the waiting list That's all you have. Those of you that haven't, get that F-150, America's most dominant car in terms of sales. You saw the success of those that try or get in line for that F-150. Just know this, the best is yet to come as every one of these models gets transformed. And as a consequence, we can breathe cleaner air. Kids will grow up healthier, and our economy will be much, much more resilient to the vagaries of decisions made overseas and the burdens that we still are facing as it relates to the price at the gas pump. It's time to move forward with an oil-free future in California. We see that bright light, and California is going to make sure we ignite it for the rest of the globe. Happy to take any questions. Yeah, so we have a program well defined in California, a lot of us very familiar with, called Clean Cars for All. Provides direct rebates for low-income households that are looking to replace their old gas guzzlers, who are looking forward to a future where they're not in line paying $5 a gallon in gas, and can charge with the sun's rays, with renewable energy sources at home. And we'll be providing direct rebates, and we're going to significantly expand that program. Just in the last 2 years, if we're successful in this budget, $665 million specifically set aside for direct low-income rebates for new, clean, alternative fuel cars. Oh, now that's the reason we're all, yeah. I was wondering why the press showed up. Come on. I wish the Raiders were on the other side of this. I don't know what happened. They got in the playoffs this year. We're encouraged. But no, I still hold them as a Cal. I know what you're thinking. They left to Vegas. I get it. They're still California in my heart. That said, no, come on. This is an exciting time. You know, every time I talk to Senator Feinstein, I'm reminded, you know, no one is a better spokesperson for what sports can do to a community, to wake people up out of a dormant mindset where you're feeling like the future may not be as good as the past. And she is always there to remind us what the 49ers did in the 80s to the entire Bay Area and our sense of spirit and pride. And she talks about in terms that are very familiar to me. You can't legislate spirit. You can't legislate pride. It just happens. And so often sports, that great uniter, the time we're so divided in every way, shape, or form, we're still high-fiving people, not asking who they voted for in the last election, whether they drive a Ford Prius or, it's one of those uniting things. And so I'm really excited about it. It's great for the state. It's great for our country. What a football season this has been. Even if you don't like football, I would encourage you to rewind Saturday and Sunday's games. They were as epic as they get in terms of competition. Anybody else? That's it. Well, that's a hell of a thing, because I'm happy not to answer any more questions. I'm just going to mark this in my diary as the first time I only got 2 questions at a press conference. But again, I want to thank everybody took the time to be here. The Ford team, thank you for investing in California and the future in this innovation center. And just one final point. The computational nature of what's happening in the automobile industry cannot be overstated. And the supply chain issues that we're all facing as it relates to new cars obviously is underscored in that respect as it relates to chips and the like. What's really extraordinary, and I hope folks just know this, automobile industry is not just in Michigan, it's not just in its traditional hubs. The automobile industry is dominant here in Palo Alto. It's dominant in Silicon Valley. If you look at a map, it's not just the big brands like Tesla and Uber and others in the automobile. All the supply chain is investing in similar innovation hubs, similar to what Ford has been doing. This is a really exciting story and a big part, I think, of the future. And again, that California is so uniquely positioned, not only to embrace, but to continue to expand and dominate. And so, again, grateful you all being out here. Thank you.